Uh, Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our webinar. My name is Marc Ashton. I'm an ex-financial journalist. I've worked with Nastassia Arendse over the last couple of years, working firstly at Moneyweb and Finweek. I will be handling the back-end administration and support of this webinar. There will be some technical experts from the Solec team also in the chat facility and monitoring the Q&A. We obviously encourage an interactive environment where there's a chance to talk to people, field your questions, get some form of responses, really keep the engagement going. I think we've had a lot of webinars over the last 6 to 8 months, so it is nice to be able to interact with the audience. A playback facility of this will be made available, and Solec will be circulating a guide and checklist for you to be able to work through. If you have any follow-up questions, the Solec team will be having their representatives making contact with you as well if you've got any extra questions. With that, I'm going to hand over to Tash Arendse. Tash, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Mark, for that introduction. So as South African consumers manage their way out of the COVID-19 pandemic, the main question that consumers and business owners have often been asking themselves is, can we keep the lights on and get our businesses up and running again? And while the challenges at Eskom have been well documented, South Africans have been given a boost with the announcement that municipalities in good standing will be able to purchase their own electricity and take charge of their own power supply. But what is the most appropriate form of electricity supply? And solar energy has been incredibly topical at the moment, and there are a number of options on the market. How does one select which solar implementation is the most appropriate for their needs? What are the common mistakes that people make when installing solar? So my hope is that this webinar and this discussion that we're going to have with Rein Henkemans, who is the MD of Solec SA, will help you answer some of those questions and some of the technical questions, as Mark mentioned. There is a team on the back end that will be able to deal with those. And we do encourage you to ask as many questions as possible. We want this to be as interactive as possible, helping you to find the right solution to fit your requirements. Without much further ado, I'd like to introduce Rein Henkemans, who's the MD of Solec SA. Rein, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I just wanted to give a little bit of background what I did. I studied electrical and mechanical engineering, and I was first in the property development game. And then I started Solec Electrical Contractors first. We were a contracting company originally, and we won quite a few tenders with a company called Solar Africa. We did the Borwin properties in Gauteng. Everybody knows the Blydes with the big lake. We did that, and a few in Joburg, and that equated to around about 2 megs of install. And then did Zibo, Apollo hotels and retirement villages, which is roughly about 16,000 panels till about the end of last year. So I saw there was a big gap in the market that residential, your house has, there's not quality turnkey installers and out there.
Right. So let's get right into your presentation before we get into that Q&A session. I know that I've got a lot of questions that I have to ask, and I'm sure the panelists as well will put together their questions as you run through your presentation.
Okay. The rising electricity tariffs, everybody knows about Eskom, knows the downfall of Eskom. Eskom won a 15% increase in court for this financial year, which is nurses objecting to. And the debt of Eskom is far greater than their revenue income at the moment. So the increases will carry on for the foreseeable future. I mean, since I started in 2017, Eskom has had a 24% increase in 3 years, which is astronomical.
Raina, maybe you can just give some context in terms of the cost of solar versus what is happening in terms of the cost, the electrical cost of the electrical tariffs. I mean, obviously we're looking at this from a residential perspective, but there's also this question of, you know, is solar simply getting to reaching a point where it's plateauing, or are we actually still likely to see decreases in the cost of solar going forward?
So solar is made up of three components: the panel on your roof, the inverter that converts the DC to AC, and then the battery if you need the backup. With regards to the panel has hit a plateau of roughly about 21 cents, US cents to import, where the inverter is coming down slightly, but it also has hit sort of a plateau. The battery, in the last 10 years, it has dramatically come down. It's come really feasible. And with South Africa's Eskom and NERSA's tariffs, it's definitely the time to invest into solar because your returns outweighs any investment into property, into commodities, or the stock market at the moment.
One of the things we're seeing, though, I mean, if we're looking at this, we're seeing some of this question about the last mile. Obviously, we've seen the question, the changes that are coming through from the distribution. This announcement now that the municipalities in good standing are able to put the purchase directly. I mean, is that likely to have any impact on cost, or are we still stuck with this kind of last mile distribution challenge where costs reach a plateau that they can't break any lower?
With regards to that, municipalities can buy from other suppliers. Yes, it has been in Parliament mentioned. Western Cape is definitely the forefront of that, but up here in Gauteng, I can't see it. I have been notified by Tshwane that 40% of their income for Tshwane is through electricity bills. So if you take away that, it doesn't make sense. They have brought forward that Tshwane will pay you 10 cents a kilowatt. So that also doesn't make sense. So putting up a solar is for your own consumption at the moment, but to sell it back, and that doesn't work.
Raina, are you seeing any trends in terms of solar in the residential environment? I mean, what kind of trends are you seeing?
In what aspect of mask?
So, I mean, if you look at, people who are installing solar, are they installing solar, for residential homes specifically, or are you seeing more of a trend where people are starting to install solar for, call it, complexes and apartment buildings in that space, or is it just purely for people who are living in, call it, standalone residential homes?
Mainly standalone residential homes. You can't, in apartment blocks, the roof space belongs to the homeowners, so you can't really put solar on the roof. Where standalone homes, it does make sense. Most body corporates of our estates allow solar now, and you must just be a creditable installer. It's definitely the way forward with a battery backup as we provide. It also protects your essential equipment, your computers, your DSTV decoders and all that, not at risk with the spikes coming through from Eskom, and you also don't have the load shedding aspect if you're working from home, which is quite a big trend at the moment.
Yeah, and probably from what South Africans are seeing, and perhaps even some of our participants here, is that perhaps load shedding might come back. We actually don't really know where we're going with Eskom in the next, call it 3 to 5 years. So if someone's sitting at home watching this now thinking, well, why invest in solar? I mean, how would you answer that as somebody who's been in the industry for as long as you have and who's spoken to a whole host of other people as well?
So my business partner is online, Matthew. He's a qualified CA, and we've run quite a few spreadsheets and calculations. When you install a solar system of roughly about 200,000 Rand, your internal rate of return is roughly 18%. Where you're never going to get that on the stock market, you're never going to get that in the property market. I mean, if you do get it in the property market, you're going to get taxed on it. If you get it in the commodities, you're going to get taxed on it. And the added saving of that you can work from home, that you do not have load shedding. You can carry on. I mean, if you have 2 hours once a week, and that's one whole day over the month that you've lost out in work. So it makes a lot of sense to do a solar system now if you have the cash available, to rather put it into solar. Your house asset increases, and you're not susceptible to Eskom.
Right. Are those the general costs, that 200,000, or does it vary depending on who you, I suppose, which service provider you would be going with?
It varies on the house, or what size house you have. You have 3-phase or single phase, and what you want to actually achieve with your solar system. If you want to go, which is really bad, off grid, the misconception of that, then you're going double that. But if you want a decent single phase system that you are about 85–90% off grid, you look at about 180,000 Rand, give or take.
Rain, I mean, I think one of the major trends we see at the moment is this kind of work from home trend. And I mean, are you finding that is quite a big driver for your business at the moment?
Yes and no. So when you work at home and Eskom doesn't have load shedding, we do see the numbers drop because it's not essential. But if load shedding does come into play, the leads come in quite a bit more. But I cannot see load shedding not coming back, especially with all the rain we've had. I do believe that load shedding will be here soon. Yes, and the working from home is not going to go away. I see quite a lot of the companies with large office space that unfortunately the tenants have given notice that they moved their staff to working from home.
Right. When it comes to, solar, I'm sure people are finding it a very exciting solution to want to consider. I mean, what are some of the considerations that you should take into account? What are some of the mistakes that clients commonly make and, that people can avoid?
So we drafted a little checklist. So we don't say use us, but please just do your study on who is a credible installer, if they're licensed, if the install itself, the products they use are like NRS approved, that is our SABS standards, that they're not just somebody imported them and somehow got them into the country. The panel is a proper panel, tier 1 panel. The cost breakdown, that it doesn't just say solar system and the amount. What are you getting for your money? What type of inverter, what type of battery, and what type of panel they're installing on your roof. That they just do, and the background on the company, that they're just not, for lack of a better word, a bucky brigade that just rocks up at your gate.
Right. In terms of this checklist, I mean, is it what you provide to all your clients that they can actually, follow through? And the one thing I'm curious about, is there a case study that you may have that you could share with the audience in terms of, how to go about getting started?
Yes, I actually gave Mark a case study that we did. It's called Client X. He used an installer that unfortunately was not compliant at all to South African standards. As you can see in the pictures, the bottom left-hand photo, the panel went over the eave. So if there's a strong wind, he's going to pick up his panel on the ground. It's called the clamping zones on the panel. If you use steel structure, you use aluminium structure, the cables are exposed on the right. They're going to perish due to because of the sun. As we know, our sun is quite potent in South Africa. And then just as we list on the left, get a COC, must be a qualified electrician. But saying that not all qualified electricians are solar installers. They must go for training. They must get their PV green card, that they know what a solar system entails.
Right.
And I mean, looking at this looks at some of the after case, and this was actually a lot. And what's nice about this example, and Ren, I'd love you to walk us through this, has been where you've taken a real world example where somebody has underinvested in the service provider, and you've been able to actually resuscitate and rebuild their solution. Maybe just run us through this case study from your perspective.
Yeah, so this client approached us and he said he wasn't happy with the system. He had inverters that weren't compliant to NRS standards. And so one of my sales agent, JD, advised him that we will utilize these panels again. These panels were fine, they were Canadian Solar, so we just put them or install them correctly. In the bottom right-hand picture, you can see the little marks that they were clamped on the right clamping zone of the panel, that if there's a strong wind or a storm, as we are used to in South Africa, that the panels don't fly off. The inverters in the top right and the 2 batteries installed are designed correctly for his usage. He runs a little development company, so he has servers running. That's why he needed bigger batteries than the normal house. So yeah, everything was designed to him, and that's where we're trying to educate the customer that not all systems are the same, but just design it customized to the client's needs.
And I mean, one of the things that seems to be quite important is the post-installation and maintenance. I mean, I think we often have this idea that you slap in a solar system and, you know, the Eskom goes off and your power goes on. But maintenance seems to be quite an important consideration, particularly, I mean, we talk about this as an investment. It's not just simply a widget or kind of a standardized box that you drop in. I mean, this is an ongoing investment that you're looking at. So maintenance is a pretty key aspect from an installer's perspective.
Correct, yes. The panels, you've got to keep them clean, that there's no debris or any dirt on them from a hardy doors or something like that. The inverters and the DB, where all the cables come into your house, we come 6 months every time to do a heat check on your DB, that there's no hot connections, that it can cause a fire. And then just generally check your clamping on the panels, that they're all torqued correctly after 6 months, that one of them hasn't come loose by chance, and all the cabling is still tucked away nicely from the sun.
I can see a couple of questions coming in on the Q&A, and I can also see a couple coming through over the email. But I mean, one of the repeat questions seems to be, I mean, does your team actually come out and, you know, do an assessment? You know, is there a cost attached to that, or is it something you do as part of your initial quoting process?
So one of my JD or Lou will come out. They both have drones that they'll fly, as you can see in the picture below. This is after we flew the drone, and they do it's called a helioscope. It's a program, an online program that we pay for, and we do a full design on your roof, that it fits, that it works, and it also can give you a yield that that your solar system will achieve over the year and the month. And we'll tell you that in winter you're not going to get as much power from your panels. In summer, in December, longer day, you're going to have more power. Also, where your inverter gets installed, we'll show you exactly where it gets installed. In a week's time, we're even getting dummy models that we're actually going to place against your wall and say, okay, this is how it's going to look. So yes, the whole thing, there is no cost to it. We're at risk for doing that, but just to give the customer a peace of mind that we're not just a fly-by-night.
Right. So the idea of rent to own versus outright purchase, is that something that's unique to you know, your solution, and what are the benefits of those two options?
So as far as we know, I could be wrong, we're one of the first companies to launch rent to own for the residential market. In the commercial market, there's a thing called a PPA, which is a power purchase agreement. But in the residential market, we're one of the first, because as we all know, times are tough in South Africa and worldwide. Not everybody has the capex outlay of 180,000 Rand. So we've launched the rent to own. So over 7 years, you can buy it out at 10% residual at the end, and we maintain it during those 7 years. We look after it through our portal. That's one big aspect of the Alpha system that is very unique, that we can monitor everything. And if it does break down, we have direct contact to China, that they can log on and give us, yes, it's an internal fault, they do a software upgrade, no, it's an external fault, there might be a cable loose, and then we'll go out and fix it.
And from a costing perspective, I mean, how do we, I mean, which is one more of a short-term solution versus the kind of longer-term investment as an owner? I mean, what are the kind of cost breakdowns there?
So for outright purchase, you can either lend money from your bank, or you have it lying around. Then compared to your rent-to-own at the moment, our model is that you have a 15% initiation installation fee, and then month-to-month cost of 180,000 Rand system. You're looking at about 2,800 Rand a month gross. That excludes your savings on your Eskom or municipality bill of that size system. You should be saving around about 1,400 to 1,600 Rand. So your net cost is roughly about 1,500 Rand a month extra, and then after the 7 years, as I mentioned, that you own it. And then our battery is warranted for 10 years, so you have another 3 years on longevity on the product.
I see some questions coming through, and the technical ones are being answered on the back end, which is really great. From, when you look at the misconceptions around going off a grid, I mean, what are some of the ones that are common that you've come across that we could tackle right now? So
South Africa's got this big conception that they don't want anything to do with Eskom. I want to switch them off and I want to go off grid. It is possible technically, but financially it doesn't make sense yet. To go off grid, you have to take into the spikes that you might get. So if you switch on a pool pump, any type of pump, the initial 20 seconds is a really big spike, and most inverters, or 99% of inverters, can't handle that. So your power will trip, or the inverter will trip. So that's why you need Eskom just to take that first 20, 60 milliseconds, and then it switches over with its intelligence to use the inverter, solar, or the battery. It depends on the time of day. To go from that to off-grid, you're looking at double your capex. So it doesn't make financial sense to do that.
Right. You're going to have to school us a little bit here by, I suppose, explaining the relationship between batteries, inverters, and panels. Just so people are on the same page with you. The moment this webinar ends, they know exactly what they're looking for and what questions they should be asking. Okay,
the panel, which is mounted on your roof correctly, produces power from the radiant heat from the sun, which is DC power, which goes into the inverter, which inverts the DC power to AC that you can utilize in your house. The battery, if your house is pulling not as much as the solar can produce, it will store it in the battery. So the excess power the panel produces will store in your battery that you can utilize at night. So you get two types of inverters: a hybrid inverter where you can connect the battery, and just a normal inverter which will convert your panel into AC power that you can utilize in a house where you cannot connect a battery.
Right. Do you have tools for people to decide whether they, are ready for your solution or whether they are ready for solar? Because it sounds like such an idea and you can easily pick up the phone and, get the ball rolling. But, are there tools for you to decide whether you're actually ready for this?
So yes, we've designed and developed a sizing tool on our website. So on the top menu, you'll see sizing tool, and then you must size it to your house needs. It will ask you what your average monthly bill. We'll give you indication on what the tariff is, the general tariff at the moment, and then you can play around with our sliding bars to exactly what you want to spend, because it'll give you the amount at the bottom and how much you want to go off grid. Yeah, you can size it to that, and after that you can right at the bottom, you can get a customized quote, and one of my sales guys will contact you and go out and do the site assessment and tell you, yes, we can install a solar system, or no, you've got a big tree in front of your house.
Right. One of the questions that just come through as you're addressing, the points, it reads, how many kilowatts does one solar panel produce? I mean, if you want to.
Okay, no. A solar panel has come quite a far way. I installed my solar system 3 years ago, and I had call it the latest and greatest panel, and that was a 275 watt panel. The common panel now is a 405 watt panel, which is roughly the same size. So the technology has definitely increased. There is talks that there's an 800 watt panel getting released soon, but you're going to pay exorbitant prices for that because it's the latest and greatest. The panel I would recommend is between 375 and 440 watts, somewhere around there, because that's the mass-produced panel at the moment.
Right. Mark, are you seeing some of the interesting questions coming through from your side?
Yeah, I mean, there's some great questions coming through, and there's definitely some great interaction happening in the chat. I mean, I'd just like to reiterate, for those who've got more technical questions, there is definitely going to be follow-up opportunities to engage with the Solec team. I mean, Rain, I mean, if maybe if I try and consolidate a couple of these questions, I mean, what are the common mistakes that people make when they start looking at these solar installations? I know we've run through the checklist, but I mean, if you just look at the questions that come up regularly from clients, I mean, what are the kind of common mistakes you see coming through on a regular basis?
Bad words like cheap and nasty. Don't do your study on the system. Do your due diligence study on that system, that there's longevity in the product. It doesn't help you do a big capex outlay, but the warranties is 1 year and 3 years on the battery. Look how many cycles the battery can do. Look how the inverter, what is the warranty backup on the inverter? There's a lot of products out there sold by, like a better word, builders and that are not accredited, and they are not the quality that you should be installing. It's not an investment then. Then you're just doing a little system on your roof that doesn't really help. You must do your study on what is correct for your house, than rather just putting something quickly up on your roof.
Question that's come through here, I mean, is it different when you look at a residential solution versus a commercial and industrial solution? Are they very different in terms of costing and scoping?
Yes, so residential, most clients will ask for the battery backup solution, where the commercial sites that we've done, none of them have a hybrid inverter. They're just more PV to save costs on electricity and bring down the demand from Eskom down, so they just have a saving.
And I mean, the obvious one, and it's obviously topical at the moment, considering all of Joburg's thunderstorms at the moment, what's the impact of the weather on a solar solution?
Yeah, the weather, if the sun doesn't shine, the panel won't work. And the big thing about weather and where the panel is positioned. We've seen sites where the panel is on the southern side of the house, east-west, and you've got to design it cleverly. There's a big tree in front of the house. You've got to look at all these factors. You must just have direct and at the correct angle to the sun that it can produce the power it should, or it says it should do.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, sorry, Mark, did I interrupt?
No, I was just going to say, I was just going to prompt our audience for last couple of questions. I am cognizant of time. Tash, you want to, I see a couple of questions have come through there. Tash, you want to run with your question?
Yeah, so I wanted to know, when you look at the demand that's coming through from, different regions in South Africa, are you finding more demand coming from the Johannesburg area? Is it Cape Town or Durban? Where are you seeing, most people picking up the phone, wanting to engage with you guys, in which areas?
The big demand lately in the last month or so is farmers. Because I think the load reduction that Eskom is calling it now is switching off farms and towns who are not paid up with them. So they call us quite a bit. And then actually the client that has disposable income at the moment in your larger estates, they're the ones who are contacting us at the moment.
Right.
Some great questions that have come through here. Just as a last search here, I'm on a plot. Eskom charges me a line fee and a service fee that's about 2,000 Rand. My real power fee is about 800. So if you say I have to keep Eskom and buy the solar deal, that will cost me quite a lot. How would you respond in that case?
Sorry, I didn't. You broke up there.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say the question read. I'm just going to read it to you again. I'm on a plot. Eskom charges me both a line fee and a service fee that is about 2,000 Rand. My real power fee is about 800. So if you say I have to keep an Eskom and buy the solar deal, that will cost me quite a lot of money.
Yes, correct. So on a farm plot, you actually get charged to have your circuit breaker and meter, where in the residential estates and around here, we don't get charged that 2,000 Rand. He probably has a 3-phase 80 amp connection, and Eskom charges a flat rate for that. So installing solar over there, you're only going to reduce the 800 Rand bill than the 2,000 Rand bill at the moment, unfortunately.
Follow-up question, well, next question. Do you perform detailed simulation studies by means of industry software, PVS system, etc. during site verification?
We used to use PVSys. We use a company called Helioscope, which is an online platform, which is accreditable, and you do get the full report with our presentation when one of my solar experts go out.
Excellent. Can you or do you offer insurance on solar panels?
When you install the system yourself on an outright purchase, you must insure it yourself. On the rental, we ask you to insure it. We also in-house. I see the next question is on a hailstorm.
Yep.
Yes and no. A panel is designed to take a small marble size, but if a golf ball. So, yeah.
Yeah, we're still here.
Yeah, we're still here.
Rain, I think your connection dropped for a moment there.
The hailstorm question. The answer is that yes, the size of a small marble, no problem for your panel, but it's designed up to a certain angle and size. But if, as I said, a golf ball size hail thing comes down, it's going to damage your panel. Yes, correct.
There's a question here for a block of flats. I've been told that unless the solar energy is paired up with hot water production, it's not cost effective. Is this true?
Water is pretty much your biggest consumption of electricity in your house. So if you do not pair them up correctly, i.e. either change your hot water system from geysers to heat pumps or gas, or put timers on to get the full effect of your solar system, you don't get the full benefit.
Rain, one of the other questions that has just come through, I think it was during the signal breakup with the connection. One of the participants asked, could you repeat the answer regarding the insurance on the rental product? Is this included in the monthly payments? And if so, what does it cover?
So it's not included. We can include it for you if you want, but it's not included from the rental part from it. We can't control if you get unfortunately robbed or anything like that, or you drive into your garage, that scenario.
And one last question before we wrap up here. The question was, if I sell my property before the 7-year rental period is up, what would be the implications there for the contract?
So there's 2 or 3 options. One, you can include in your selling price. So there's a buyout option that you just add it to the sale of your house, and then we'll just move the ownership over to the new client. Or we can look at a new house and move the system over to that house if it is feasible. And then there will just be a fee to take it out and move it over.
Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your questions. It's been really valuable where we have the opportunity to actually engage with you and get the opportunity to get your feedback. I think whenever we see all these webinars, there's often a litmus test to see how many questions we can manage to generate and get some kind of debate going. We really appreciate you taking the time. Rain, before we wrap up here, do you have any closing comments?
No, just please do your study on what solar system you go for. Just look if the company is reputable, and rather invest in solar than into commodities in that, because it's a better return.
Excellent. Thanks for your time. Tash, thanks very much for moderating as always. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be circulating the playback facility. Please keep your eye on your email as well. You'll see an email link with the playback facility plus the supporting documentation for this. And we look forward to engaging with you over the next couple of months. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.